Black women out here living our best life, and we gonna talk about it on the Cute Shoes channel. What's up, y'all? You just tuned in to the Cute Shoes channel, your virtual hangout spot on the chill side of the internet. Your host is Dr. Akua Rose Feathers, and she is going to guide you through the legacy-making brilliance, vulnerability, and awesomeness of Black women. Oh, this is not just a web channel. This is a spotlight, a stage and sanctuary for the rich mosaic of experiences, dreams, and triumphs of Black women. So, kick off your shoes, grab your favorite drink, and chill with us as we dive into some real talk. Let me tell you who's on the show today. On the show today is Juanita Gaynor, a thriving entrepreneur and best-selling author from New Jersey who is a force to be reckoned with. Armed with degrees in business administration and accounting, she has founded and manages 5 successful companies. She is a multi-talented creative, hosting the Moving Past You radio show and co-authoring inspiring books. Guided by her faith, Juanita aims to be a beacon of light, making a positive impact globally. Let's get to that conversation.
Hello. You know what? I'm gonna just pull the curtain back. We've already been having a good conversation. I was like, wait a minute, let me push record because y'all know I'm gonna tell y'all the secret behind a lot of these web series and podcasts is before we jump on, we've already had a conversation. Yes. So we already know that we vibe. We already know that the energy is there. So by the time we get on, it's almost like old friends.
Right.
So that's where we are. And so I want to jump into the conversation today because in our pre-conversation, we was kind of in it. And I was like, wait. We're going to talk about something that is a little bit of a sensitive topic. We are talking about the church, and specifically, we're going to narrow it down because there's so much to be talked about in this subject. So we're going to kind of narrow it down. We're going to talk about Black women in the church. And this is a topic that I have a curiosity about because of so much that I witnessed for over 25 years in the church. Okay. And I was a member in good standing, which just means I gave my tithes, y'all. I'm just going to go ahead and pull the curtain back on that too. I was a regular tithing member of the church. And I'm also a person who believes in redemption. I'm also a person who believes in forgiveness. I'm also a person who believes in healing and reconciliation. And I believe that in order to get to those places, we got to have some real conversations. Oh, yeah. I want to kind of just build the case, if you will. Let us know do you have do you have I'm gonna say spiritual practice, and then you take us to whatever, however you call it, identified, etc. Do you have any type of spiritual practice, and how would you describe it? How would you define it?
Okay. I am a Christian, as you know, because for lack of better terms, I was born and raised in the church. Mm-hmm. My mother was born and raised in the church. When I tell you she was a singer, I was a singer. When I can tell you she could sing Heaven Down, nice. She could sing Heaven Down. I kind of navigated away from a lot of singing because of the trauma of abuse and stuff as a child, and even in the church. Mm-hmm. I was the Sunday school secretary. I was Sunday school superintendent. I was choir director. I married choir director of choir director. Mm-hmm. Divorced now. We'll just leave it at that. That's a whole, music in the church. Episode. We'll leave it at that. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
I supported pastors, did personal assistant work, accounting, you name it. I have been through every facet of ministry. I've been Baptist, was raised Pentecostal, turned to non-denominational, AME, and my dad, because he was Spanish Catholic, when I traveled and whatever, I would go to mass. Mm-hmm. So I have been on every spectrum of it. But what I've realized for myself is at the end of the day, it was my relationship with God.
Yeah.
And what saved me a lot of the times was I didn't take well to people telling me what to do. So I was going to read the Bible for myself.
Oh, yes. Come on, go there.
And I knew I didn't understand what my call was, but I knew there was something different about me. I knew like praise and worship hit me differently. I took it seriously. I didn't play with it, and I didn't like nobody else to play with it.
Yeah.
I took being, condescending and two-faced and backstabbing real serious. Don't tell me how not to act. One instance, they was like, oh, well, you shouldn't do this or whatever. How are you telling me what I shouldn't do? But you was in the club with somebody that's not your wife.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, so you do the 1-2 punch in real life too. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Yes, do it, So I did walk away from a while because I couldn't handle, I was not understanding. I'm like, God, you're all of this and whatever. And why do people constantly just keep turning away from you? And it wasn't until I went through my healing phase that I began to understand why us as women, even when the church abuses us, when they cast us aside, when they make us be less than anything, we still ride for them. Because many of us are still living in the trauma of slavery.
Oh, that's some real stuff right there. And just very similar to you, I've been in so many different roles and positions and callings, and I fulfilled a lot of those in the church. And there was this, I just like the things that you're naming, it could very well just, erase your name off the top of the paper and put mine on there because it's so similar to my story. I was very faithful, I was very diligent, did all of these different things. And it afforded me a seat in some of these what I call back rooms, like in the back rooms where the congregation don't typically come in, and I saw things and I heard things. It's not just, oh, I heard about so and so. I saw so and so doing the thing, or I heard so and so saying the thing, and I was the kind of person, I'm just so eager and just so chipper and just so ready to just be that servant and that soldier. I would ask. I'm not going to be like, well, I wonder why she said that. I would say, why you say that? Man, because you had said when you was preaching, you said blah, blah, blah. But then when you got behind closed doors, you said yada, yada, yada. And those two things don't match.
Right.
Why is that so? And I wouldn't ask it in an accusatory way, but I realized that just the fact that I was asking it was perceived as an accusation.
Yep.
Right. But the thing that relevant to the conversation that we're having, when the hurt, when the harm, when the danger, when the trauma was inflicted upon somebody as a result of that hypocrisy, that is the moment that I saw different people ride real hard in support of the wrong that somebody else was doing. And they came after the person who was harmed. What is that?
Because what has happened is that the person who was harmed has decided that that wasn't gonna be their status quo. You wasn't gonna talk to them any kind of way. You wasn't gonna do them any kind of way. They were gonna call you to the carpet. And when and I'm saying we, because there's times we've done it too.
Absolutely.
We become not offended. We are hurt. Because now we feel guilty because we didn't have the power, or we think we don't have the power to defend ourselves. So therefore, when we see somebody else defending themselves and upsetting the status quo and could potentially rip off the Band-Aid and rip off and expose everything for what it is, we're going to shut that down.
Yeah.
We're not having it, because it is better to lay with the wound continually oozing and scabbing over than to pull it out and bleed out to get the infection out.
And the translation of that is, it's better to limp and pretend like you healed than to actually get into the ugly work of healing and then truly be healed.
Yep.
It's such a painful place. It reminds me of, I used to have not a lot, but I used to have some mentors when I was like very, very early on. And there were different things that I would ask them for insights and, information about different things. And almost verbatim, they would say things to me like, I had to struggle to understand that. So why wouldn't you have to struggle? And that's kind of what I thought about when you said that. If somebody's saying ouch and not trying to be the status quo, it's like, well, how dare you think you can be healed? And I had to hurt for so long.
Right. And because too, when you look at it, and I'm going to say this, and this may ignite fire.
Okay.
The church building itself is nothing but a brothel.
All right.
The leadership, because they're mostly men, all they're doing is pimping the women out.
All right. Yeah.
That's all they're doing.
Yeah.
And they have free reign because many have been brainwashed. If you look at the dynamic of the church, if you look at not all, but look at the dynamic of church, there are single mothers. Fathers aren't present. The children have behavioral issues. There's been some type of way that mother may have been abused as a child. They are all wounded. Their father left them. And so what happens, not all, but I'm speaking from my experience in the places that I've been, they take them in under the guise of offering them help.
Come on.
Will help them to a point before they start abusing them.
Ooh.
Then when they see the abuse, they turn around and gaslight them and make them feel guilty. Be like, well, I did all of this for you. Why would you say this?
Come on.
Therefore, keeping them in the space of just mediocrity, because anytime they call it out, now it's being called you're ungrateful.
Come on. Oh.
Look at we paid your bills.
Listen.
We helped you. We took your son to whatever. We paid for him to go to camp. We made sure he stayed out of, he stayed off the gangs, but you done taught him how to pimp out the girls in the choir.
Yes. I'm gonna tell you the truth. I didn't realize we was gonna be this deep, and I'm very glad that we are, because it is the truth, and it's time that we talk about it. And I hear you. I'm gonna say this real quick, just because it's not all, and I think I'm gonna just be real. I think it's pitiful that we have to say that, because everybody knows that we're speaking from our own experience. But I want to give you a clue as to how you know that you might be in this space. If you get offended, the shoe might fit, because they say a hit dog will.
The shoe fits very well. If I'm riding down your street and I roll on your feet, just say ouch and keep going.
I learned something, heal from something, grow, admit something, acknowledge it. And you hit the nail right on the head, especially when you called it like a brothel, and that, that women are being pimped. And I'm going to name that sometimes it's women pimping their women members. It's not just the brethren.
No, but see, I got it better. Not all.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens is because the brothers have pimped the women out so long, and whatever they can identify it, they now bring women in under the guise. Because remember, women in most Black churches, and I'm saying Black churches, couldn't even stand in the pulpit.
Facts. It's been women when I was younger, they would preach heaven down, and they're like, oh yeah, but you're gonna stand at the podium on the floor.
Right.
Yeah.
So when they realized that they had new supply, but the supply wasn't latching on, they switched up and was like, oh, you know what? We know that women, we've changed. We're going to get to this modern day and age. But because a lot of these women, they didn't choose nobody from the outside. They made sure that they chose those hurt, broke down, bitter, whatever, who's been working forever in the day to get to this point. And now they think they're better than you. So therefore, they're going to keep Master happy and execute whatever they had to do so they can stay in their position.
Yes, indeed. One of the things I appreciate is the correlation that you're making of the Black church in the days of our enslavement, because that's literally, if you look at it, they almost look like twins, right? Yep. We got a lot of the ideology. It looks exactly the same as the rules on the plantation. Yeah, they're right there, and we singing and we praising, and there's this foundation, the structure that's rooted in some of those very similar ideologies and beliefs.
Just look at the what they call the high yellow, the mid one, whatever. That all happens within the church too, just like on the plantation.
Yes. House Negro and field Negro, and based on what you look like, and based on how, and a lot of time, I'm telling y'all, we're gonna just pull the curtains back. It was disgusting to me. We would have a special occasion, and this is the way that I saw women being introduced to the pulpit area. We would have a special occasion, and evangelist so-and-so who can encourage people. Oh yeah, she do a good, what do they call it? Not offering. There's
Oh
this,
yeah,
I
she
forget
does.
what,
She can lift the offering well.
yes,
We
lift the
want her to
offering.
come up there because she can get them to dig deep in those pockets. Yeah, we want
Yes,
so and
indeed.
so to come on because she gonna get them to open up them pockets.
Yes, indeed. It's an emotional manipulation that, as you mentioned, start with first, I'm gonna treat you well. I'm gonna take you in, and I'm gonna take. Oh, you trying to get your baby out of out of jail? We're gonna help you do that. We're gonna write letters. We're gonna pull our our resources together. We're gonna get your baby out of jail. We're gonna help them get through school. Oh, you need your rent paid? We're gonna pay your rent. You need groceries, and it's like a grooming period.
Yep.
Where they get you excited and they get you like, I feel loved and I feel accepted and I feel appreciated. I feel supported. And then somewhere along the line, it shifts and they're so good with it. And again, and this is the tragedy. This is my experience. And it is experience of so many women that I've spoken to. I've coached, I've done workshops, so many similar threads. So while it is not all, it is prevalent enough for us to talk about.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And they flip the script, and now I got you because now I can manipulate, because you still want that community, you still want that support, you still want that acceptedness. So when you start to raise your voice and say, you hurt me, these are all the things that you're jeopardizing.
Mm-hmm.
In the place where
And
you
they
came.
isolate you from other people.
Yeah.
They say you don't want to hang out with that person. They not, they're the devil. They're
Come
not of
on.
the church.
Come on.
You don't want to hang out with that person because they don't believe like you believe.
Come on. I had one pastor tell us from the pulpit that if somebody left that particular church, we don't have no business talking to them. Did you hear what I said?
Yeah, that was prevalent across anyone that I've known. Prevalent. If someone left, it was, to them be like, we don't associate with them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sibling, best friend, it don't matter who it is. If they
Mother,
left
daughter,
here, you don't have no business talking to them. Let me ask you this. Because the church is so central to the Black community, we know the history and how Black church was very significant to us from the days of our enslavement, and even throughout to the civil rights movement, how very central it was to the Black community. Would you say that church membership and a role in the church, would you say that has kind of enmeshed itself into Black people's identity?
I would say that just definitely up through, I would say Gen X, us.
Okay.
Because if you think about it, that even though sometimes our parents wasn't there, we was in, Wednesday night prayer meeting, Bible study, choir rehearsal, first service, morning service, afternoon service, night service. We that was ingrained in our life, in our lives. And we decided, I don't have any children, but I know others decided that they was not going to do that to their own children. So that kind of indoctrination kind of stopped with us, and it wasn't that we didn't love God. It just wasn't that we didn't want relationship with God. We was tired of tradition. We was tired of this. There has to be more than this. And this is what it was. It was to keep you occupied so that you did nothing else. So that once you realized, once you made them center, they could do you any kind of way.
That's good. That's good. So maybe not so much in our identity, but our social standing, which does kind of lend a little bit to identity. Because yeah, you're right. For me, it was, of course, Sunday church, and that could be all day. Monday was the only night that I can remember there wasn't always something, but because I was doing a lot of administration, I had meetings. So it was Tuesday night teachers meeting, Wednesday night Bible study, Thursday night praise team rehearsal, and then choir rehearsal. Friday night was preparation for whatever the youth were doing, or it was the youth night. And then Saturday it was evangelism. And then if there was birthdays, anniversaries, funerals, weddings, we all in there with each other. So that's.
And if you came up in Pentecostal, then it's, you got to pay for state convocation, national convocation, and don't forget about revival, honey.
Oh yeah, revival. So so it's kind of revealing a little bit more about why we ride so hard despite what we see. Huh.
Because by the time, I would say by the time year 3 or 4,
Yeah.
the only friends we have are the friends that go to that church.
Facts. Because like you mentioned, I did step away. And when I stepped away, people who was like, oh my gosh, you're such my sister. I love you so much. I'm so glad. Crickets on the phone, crickets on the text message. And it's devolved to the place now where it's just a like here and there on a social media post.
And when I walked away from that one and when I got married and got with my husband, I was getting the calls because I was the first soprano. See, there's another, mechanism to when you're a singer. You can tell them to kiss and I'm gonna say this, you can tell them to kiss your entire ass. But if they need you to sing that solo, they're gonna call you.
Oh, absolutely.
They're gonna call you. They don't care how much they dislike you. But if they need you to sing Heaven Down, if they need you to do whatever, they're going to shut. And that's also why when you see how musicians were able to control how things moved, because you needed us.
Yeah.
You needed the choir director. You needed your prime soloist. You needed your piano, your organist, your drummer. You needed them.
So they got you eating, how they say they got you eating out of their hands because
of
how you need them.
It was like a torture situation. It was like, I hate you to death, but you knew you had a gift, and you knew that it was just like, before you're strong enough to be like, you know what, this isn't of God and I'm not going to do it, you still go back because somebody in there needs to hear from God.
Everything you're saying, like as you're talking, I'm literally thinking, and I won't say them, but I'm thinking of names. I'm thinking of people. I'm thinking of, sitting where the pastors cannot stand a certain, musician. Will dog walk them verbally every chance they get. But every time we got something special, I got to call so-and-so. I got to make sure so-and-so going to be there. And again,
made sure they paid them too.
Well, you know what? Unfortunately, in some instances, they did pay them, but sometimes they didn't pay them what they should have paid them.
No, they never. We were never paid what we were supposed to, be paid. And again, that change come now because you think about it, we didn't realize we should be paid.
Fair. That is true.
But when we leave, that was the only thing that was really going to bring us back, was the money. And that is why it shifted. People think, oh, well, musicians are just after money. No, we understood that you needed us versus whatever. And after all of the hurt and the trauma and everything you put through, for me to walk back into that hellfire, into that den, you're going to pay me to do that.
Absolutely. And let's just boil it down to what it is. Like, this is your gift, your talent that you are giving. It's not just, oh, I'm sitting on the piano and I'm touching a bunch of keys. No, you're giving of yourself in that space. So yeah, you're going to pay me. And I got to come back into the hell that you're going to pay me.
Right. And that's where it seems, and they would hate it, but then you see how some of our Black women because you knew that one sister. She was a stocky sister, chocolate, beautiful, that anytime she opened her mouth can do whatever. And you saw her wither away, waiting for the opportunity.
Yes.
That never came.
Yes. Oh, let's talk about it. Again, why we ride so hard for the church, because you're unveiling another thing in what you just said. When you believe that your opportunity, your calling, your gift, your future, your destiny is in that place, you're going to ride for it because you don't want to leave and miss your chance.
Yeah.
I've seen it so big. And real quick piece of I'm gonna give you my testimony real quick.
Hey, go ahead.
I thought, that I was going to be, that my destiny, my future was going to be from the church. And when I would go, to a different church, the preachers, the pastor, the leaders would see my gifting, and then they would start doing that string along promise thing. where it was, oh yeah, if you gonna, yeah, we're gonna put you in, we're gonna do this and we're gonna lift you up, we're gonna blah blah blah. And you're waiting for that moment, that big kaboom of your ministry blowing up. And the truth is they never had an intention of getting you to that place.
No, because they needed to keep you silent. They needed
Yeah.
you not to be able to share and walk in your purpose. And see, what they don't understand is that they have to answer to God for that.
For sure. For
They
sure.
have to answer to God for that. And if you see you, and the thing is, and I tell people, and I tell, if you know, Lord, if I'm incorrect, He will correct me. But I've seen throughout everything I have, when you see ministries failing, when you see them falling apart, it's because they have to go back and get those members who they, you know, damned their souls to hell because they just mistreated them. They're the ones that, you know, abused them and triggered them and, you know, incited them to be out there in the world. They put them back out there. Instead of being the hospital to heal, you were the hospital that hurt, and you took advantage and you used. And when you see these ministries falling apart, it's because they have not done and rectified the errors in what they've done.
Wow. I want to ask you something. I want to ask you, usually I say things like this for the end. So I'm going to ask you again, little spoiler alert, for what do you say to, and we are talking about Black women, and I do understand that there are, you know, young people, that there are males, that there are non-binary, that there are all kind of people who have experienced hurt in the church. This particular episode, we are talking about Black women. So I want to ask you, Juanita, what do you say to the woman who has been so diligent? You know, from her perspective, she's served, she's been faithful, she's done all the things, she's crossed all the T's and she's dotted all the I's, and yet and still there is this prevailing hurt that she continues to experience in the church space. What do you say to give her some sort of hope, encouragement, some sort of, you know, purpose, revitalization? What do you say to that woman?
Jeremiah 29:11. And I want people to read the full in context of that because it goes into a lot more depth. But it says He knows.
Yeah.
And it's His plan is to prosper, not harm you.
Yeah.
Plans to give you hope and a future. Not hope for a future.
Say that.
Hope and a future.
Yeah.
His plan for you is to prosper you, not harm you.
Yeah.
And you have to center that and think about, these things are hurting me. How is God in this?
Oh. I love that.
If me going to church every Sunday, going to this building every Sunday, if me getting up here to perfectly minister and I am just not getting anything out of it, I am hurting, I am crying, I am not seeing anywhere out, I'm not seeing any hope, I am not seeing any love, I'm not feeling it. Who are you working for? Who are you ministering to? Who are you performing to?
I want to ask you how, you know, and because sometimes it can get a little bit blurry. The lines can get a little bit blurry, right? What are some things that I should be looking for? And this is not victim blaming. This is not naming it as this is your fault and you should have and da-da-da-da, because I heard you say that it's okay because you didn't know.
You didn't know.
That you didn't know.
You didn't know. You didn't. Because He covers me. When I think about where I should be, for all the stuff that I've done, for all the people that I've hurt, for for always going left when I should have went right, even when He's told me, He's covered me with grace. But now that I know better, I know that going against Him is going, I'm gonna get the full whipping. Like, it's not gonna be tap, I'm gonna get the full whipping. But for me, I'm gonna say for me, because I was always the one that, because of my abuse, I was always a people pleaser. So therefore, the line was always blurred, because my thing is that if I go ahead and do this, if I allow them to talk any kind of way to me, if I let so-and-so sleep with me, or fill up on me, he's going to make sure grandma's good, and he's all of these things, it's going to be fine. I know that I can be a handful. So, and this is supposed to be a man of God or a woman of God. I need to just step back and do what I'm supposed to do. And if I do what I'm supposed to do, everything will work out. I was like that for a very long time. But there came a point where I had to look to the world. And I'm going to say this. And I looked at how I dealt with things in the world. I didn't let my boss at my job talk to me crazy.
Oh my goodness. Would you say that for the people in the back?
I didn't let my boss talk to me crazy. I didn't let my coworker talk to me crazy.
Come on.
So why am I letting these people do that? And that was the first realization to me that there was a problem. Sometimes you have to look in your day-to-day when you go into your job. And it may not even be that. If you're going into a situation and you're always irritated, and you're always whatever, look at the people around you. And most times, like, say again at work, someone's going to ask you, how's your day? Is everything okay? Did you have some coffee? What's going on? And you realize, wait a minute, nobody at church asked me how I'm doing.
I'm right.
But these are the key things. If I don't have no money for lunch, there's somebody at work that's going to be like, oh, girl, I got you until whatever. But there's nobody at church, because then they're going to sit up there and tell me that I ain't paid enough tithes.
And there it is. And
so I can't, because, I can't even afford to keep my lights on, but, now you're worried about my tithes.
Yeah. You know what I'm hearing? I'm writing down a whole bunch of stuff that you're saying, because you just dropping bomb after bomb after bomb after bomb. That first period, like, one of the spaces, if we're talking about healing, we're talking about, that restoration, what I'm hearing from you is that it starts with you. It starts with the individual themselves. And what I can't do is focus on the love bombing that happened when I first entered the church, because that's when they had all the resources in the world to help you and to support you and to love on you and to all of these things. But then you get in there, and after you said a couple of years, then all of a sudden the people just begin to show you who they really are. They did not change. Okay? They showed you who they really were. And you said something. The things that I will not allow at my job, and I just let it happen in the church. They pay me over here. And none of my rewards that I'm anticipating from being in the church space, none of them come from the people. But I'm gonna let them talk to me crazy. Oh, that was big.
Yeah. Or you go to that family reunion and you got all the smoke for that aunt, and she turned around and say, well, why don't you talk to your deacon that way?
Ooh, yeah.
Sometimes, we all got that one auntie.
Yeah. And if you don't have that one auntie, then it's you. Just saying.
I probably am. But you have that one family member who don't, and the thing is, and you begin to look at that, like, why don't they like Pastor so-and-so? Why won't step foot in that building?
Yeah.
So you begin to pay attention. You're starting to notice those things now.
Yes.
And you start asking questions. And then you realize that the grass that you've been watering all these years is astroturf.
Yep. Yes.
And the reason why it's still so green, because it was never real to begin with.
That part. And somewhere along the way, everybody agreed to pretend like it was astroturf, and they come in there at 2 a.m. and they spray paint it green, because sometimes over time it turns a different color. And they all just agree that this is how we're going to roll. So I'm hearing, as we're talking about why Black women rise so hard in the church, the underlying, not message, the underlying subject, the thing that is prevailing is that we ride so hard because there's trauma there, there's pain there. And I'm also hearing elements of guilt, perhaps, elements of I owe somebody, perhaps. So in order to get to that healing space, I'm going to say a statement. I'd love to hear your response or reaction to it. And I'm going to say it, and it doesn't necessarily mean that this is what I believe, but I'm going to say it. I'm going to hear what your thoughts are. In order to heal, you have to leave. What is your response to that statement?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Because the thing is like, when I left the first time, and here's the thing, I was working. So I could no longer keep up with the schedule that I had maintained. See, that's usually what happens for most people that leave. Their job now comes into play. So I can't be there on Wednesday night Bible study. I can't be there for prayer meeting. I can't be at the church, whatever, because I was working in retail when I first started. So yeah, you could have Sunday, you can have Sunday morning off, but you can't have Sunday evening off. You got to come into the, come in. So therefore, my schedule has now changed. No, I can't go to every revival or every whatever. So the first time I took a leave was because I had to work and pay bills. Because for me, it was already determined. When I had got to an age, I think I was about 16, is when I stopped being sexually abused by men in church. And how that happened was, I said, I'll tell your wife. Ended that real quick.
Yeah.
But what was happening is that they were taking the money that my grandmother would give to help pay bills. To pay bills, they wasn't paying bills. So I had to work because her little Social Security wasn't helping and taking care of 2 kids. The little social, checks, money they were getting from welfare for 2 kids wasn't working.
Yeah.
Especially a girl with all that we need. So I had to work. So that was the first time I had left and walked away. And so when I came back, you see some real different, because now you ain't been there, you ain't been amongst the thing, and now they looking at you sideways, they looking at you crazy, they're looking at you like you stole from their mama. Because now they talk to you crazy, you look at them and see, and my mouth is not redeemed, because I'd be like, who the fuck I would turn around. I used to turn around and say, who the fuck are you talking to? Like, because I was always that person, but I wasn't that person always in church, because it was just like, don't say that. And I turned around and be like, who are you talking to?
Yeah. And you know what it is? You broke the indoctrination. If you're not here Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, if you're not here every single day, then you're not subjected to our constant and consistent, indoctrination.
Yep.
We're teaching you, and we're I don't want to use that word.
It's a cult mentality.
That's where I was.
Say it clear. Just say it.
Yeah.
It's a cult mentality. It is programming.
That's what it is. That's what it is. We're programming you into a certain personality, into a certain, because there are so many people who, and I won't name names, there's so people that, were just vibrant and just like lively and loud and raucous and just like, oh my gosh, I just love your personality. When they get in the church, they're just like, oh, praise him. Oh yes, it's so, and I'm like, who are you? Yeah. Who did you become? It was because that programming stifled you.
Yeah.
And that's what happens. And so when you describe how you left and then came back, you was like, I ain't stifled no more. Like, I'm
right. And then what also happened is that I started dating my now ex-husband, and he was AME. So I started going to his church.
Okay.
And people were like, oh my God. I'm like, and then you see what you do. You see the hypocrisy and how that switches up. Because in the Bible, it says you cleave, to your husband and your wife. So you move with them. Oh no, that's where the problem is. No, he's supposed to come here. And he's the head of the choir of his own. He's the church he grew up in. What you talking about? I'm gonna go with him. And then you see other ministries and how they operate. Not that they perfect.
Uh-huh.
But when you come across a pastor that don't talk to their congregation crazy,
Ooh.
or send subliminals over the pulpit, you're like, wait a minute.
Uh-huh.
You're not supposed to do that.
Uh-huh. There we go. There we go.
When they sit up there and they call whoever to the carpet, all.
Yes.
When you see structure, they ain't got no problem with sitting somebody down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're like, where have you been all of my life?
And you look at that and you're like, oh, we're not supposed to do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so now you begin to really deep dive into life itself. Now you're able to, when you break the indoctrination, I encourage you to visit other ministries, to visit.
Yes.
Because think about it, we could never go to our friend's church.
Facts.
Because we were always so busy. Because if you was a kid, you went to Sunday school, you went to children's church, you was on the Sunbeam choir, you was on the youth choir, you was on the young adult choir, you was on the adult choir. As you got older, you were a youth usher, you were a junior usher.
Usher. It was an usher.
Right, usher. You was a junior deacon. Junior deaconess. You was part of the kitchen ministry.
We're gonna make sure that the babies get this indoctrination too.
Yes.
Yeah.
They started all again. So when you start visiting your friend's church, you start going out with people, it's amazing when you think about it. I tell some women, if you're in a ministry and if you have to travel for work, visit the ministry.
Yeah. Yeah.
With my dad being Spanish Catholic, what I would do is usually because of time, I couldn't go to a traditional service. So I would go to mass. I would find a Catholic church, and I would go to mass because Rosary, I did all of that. So I would go to mass in and out. But then I realized that you didn't have to have service for 3 hours.
Say that.
You're gonna
stand up and down a lot of times, but you ain't
gonna
be
stand up and down a lot of times.
Yeah.
But you don't have to have church for 3 hours. And then, I went to this nice, white church. And it was different, but I enjoyed it. And we wasn't there for 3 hours. You go to another, maybe an AME or another church out of town, whatever, and they got 3 services, whatever, and you're out in an hour and a half. And they still got time to talk with you, and they're loving towards you, and you understand you're a visitor, so that is their job to do that. But you can just feel the different vibes. It's just like, oh wow,
yes,
because you know how some of our churches let a new person come up in there, they look at them all crazy.
I've had a lot of experiences. Now we don't wear that here, so you sit on the back row. That's a quote.
Yeah.
Okay. And I love how you're naming that as part of the healing process. It's not just leave the church that you're a member of. It's one of the opportunities is to leave and go look at other places and see what happens in there. And what I did love that you said was visit. Because the first thing that people want to do when you join the church is get you signed up to use your gift. We got to find out what your gift is so we can keep you here forever is the translation.
One thing that the current technology has done, especially COVID, is allowed social media, live streaming. You have the ability now to visit plenty of different ministries and understand the style and see how it's a fit. Because my current ministry, even though I'm in New Jersey right now, my church is still in Atlanta. It's Dream Center Atlanta with Bishop William L. Murphy. He's my pastor.
Okay.
And I watched them on YouTube for a long time before I ever physically went.
Wow.
And it was funny because I went and God was like, this is where I need you to be. I joined that Sunday. I was baptized the Sunday before COVID shut everything down. And so I knew it was my time because it had been so long since I had covering. But I had I was watching different ones and,
Yeah.
it was like they didn't, resonate with me, and things like that. You can do that now. There's no excuse for you not to visit around now to see what other ministries are doing, how they're operating, what do they do during their services, what kind of programs they offer, how do they treat their people.
Yeah.
Because now it's on, everything's out there. So if this something's going crazy, they're going to put it out there, but also you get to see how they respond.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in this process of doing this, you got to read your word. You got to start reading the word. You got to start taking your time and getting your journal and having quiet and meditation time and reading it and reconnecting that relationship with God. Because no matter what you say, no matter what anyone says, I'm a firm believer, while you're being indoctrinated, while you're in that, mechanical, maniacal stage, your relationship with God is very stunted.
Wow. 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 And that goes back to what you said. You said if they hurting you, is that God?
Yep.
If you being hurt, is that God? Is God in this?
Yep.
And that goes back to what you said. You said if they hurting you, is that God?
Yep.
If you being hurt, is that God? Is God in this?
Yep.
And that goes back to what you said. You said if they hurting you, is that God?
Yep.
If you being hurt, is that God? Is God in this?
Yep.
And that goes back to what you said. You said if they hurting you, I want to ask you for encouragement because you're right. COVID did shake some things up. And I believe that when people, because we had to go into our separate spaces, there's been numbers saying the church is declining because people ain't coming back. They just go watch on YouTube and online and things of that nature. But somebody's planning to go back. Yeah. And somebody's planning to go back who was hurt. And so as these churches have opened back up and they're, doing the, welcoming people back in, what do you say to the person who is getting ready to get back up in there? What do you say to them? However the spirit moves, what do you say to them as they're preparing to go back into that place? How do you maintain self-care? How do you manage in that space today?
Yes. What I want to tell them is that, one, you're doing a brave thing. If you feel that that's where God has led you and that's where he needs you to be for your ministry and you're going back. But it is prevalent that you have to stay before God in prayer. You have to set time aside first thing in the morning, in the afternoon, whenever that is, to seek him, to have him pour into you, so that he can prepare you for the day. But it is prevalent that you have to stay before God in prayer. You have to set time aside first thing in the morning, in the afternoon, whenever that is, to seek him, to have him pour into you, so that he can prepare you for the day.